Hey everybody, welcome back, Co-Creation Nation. We are so glad you're here listening. I'm Lauren Hall.
And I am Troy Blankenship. How are you, Lauren? We are back at it again. Another awesome episode of Co-Creation Nation.
I'm doing amazing. Doing this podcast with you is a super highlight. It's just fun because we get to talk about a thing we're passionate about. Most days we'll bring on other people that we interview, but today, because it's just the two of us, we can really dive deep into all the awesomeness that we have being hypnotists, right? I mean, this is an unconventional industry for sure. I know, Troy, you did not expect to be a hypnotist, and now you are. And you were just telling me earlier about some awesome client successes.
Well, and you didn't either, right? When I had the pleasure the other day of interviewing you, right, and getting your backstory and your process as to how you became this awesome hypnotist and set up this awesome practice with like a dozen physical offices, and you work with people online and all this stuff. It's just like that was like the furthest thing from your mind. And now look at you. You have
Yes, sir.
all these people that you've helped after all these years. And it's just, I mean, I always say it's like this, right? It's like I feel people, you know like you and myself, right? It's like we have the best seats in the house because we are at the forefront of change and change work. And when someone comes in and they have an issue, and they've been dealing with this issue for 5, 10, 15, 20 years or more, right? And you're able to help them, you have this front row seat to witness and watch someone transform. And it's such a beautiful scene. It's just a beautiful moment in someone's life. And I'm just, for me, I'm so happy that I can share that with somebody, that I can help someone get to that point so they can realize their own true personal power and embody this and then take
Troy,
that out with them
that's
into the world. That's so special to me.
so guys, if you haven't checked out our Co-Creation Nation Facebook fan page, Troy and I will do some video lives, and he'll talk about this and the empowerment that he and I get to hold in the seats we have. And I get emotional about it because it is so fulfilling that we found these unconventional careers, because I know both of us had various corporate endeavors that led us to this unconventional role. But we are so passionate about it because hypnosis is amazing. Our mind is amazing. I want to ask Troy, what session, because I know you and I have a similar strategy like with clients, usually, a couple of sessions to really fix even like a decades long goal. Which session would you say, if you had to pick, would be the favorite? Would it be session one or session two as far as working with a person?
My favorite session is always the session I'm currently in.
Okay. I
My
mean, yeah, that's a
and
tough
let me explain
question.
why. Right? Let me explain why. My favorite session is always the session I'm currently doing, whether it's the first, second, third, fourth, whatever it is, right? Because I get to be with my client. And it's like this, it's always hypnosis in my practice as well as yours, Lauren. It's a cooperative approach. It's a collaborative approach between myself and the client, between you and your client, right? I always call it like this delicate dance because I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like when most people think of hypnosis, when most people are coming in for the first session, right? And I'm just talking about my practice now,
Yeah.
for their first session with me, they're thinking that they're going to be closing their eyes and they're going to be sitting in a chair or reclining in a chair and they just listen. And then all of a sudden they wake up, or things are over after an hour or 90 minutes or whatever it is, and they're just supposed to be fixed and they're just supposed to be changed and it's supposed to be immediate, right? Because that's the society that we live in today, right?
Yeah.
It's not like that in my practice. How you and I are talking right now, Lauren, is exactly how I run my sessions. It's a conversational hypnosis, but we are hitting on change work because we're allowing the brain to see this positive change and allowing the client to communicate with their brain in a way that their brain understands to affect this positive and constructive and beneficial change. So, I mean, classic example, I just had a client last night come in for driving anxiety, right? I asked her at the end of that first session, it was her first session. At the end of her first session, I said, so now that this is over, now that this first session is over, do you feel this session went as to how you thought it was going to go when we first started today? And she said, no, I had no understanding. This went completely different from how I thought. it was going to go. And maybe I'm wrong on this, Lauren, but I feel like most people are like that. And I think that it's sold to us by the movies that we watch and the shows that we watch and the rap that hypnosis gets and those entertaining stage shows that you see on YouTube or Vegas, right? Because that's what just people think it is. But hypnosis for change work and clinical hypnosis is so much more than just
Well,
listening.
we can tell people that, and that might resonate, but we know information is best conveyed through stories. I think we should share some of our client stories like the one you just mentioned, because we've got our websites, and they those talk about the science and the social proof about how hypnosis works, but still there's people out there that we meet, even people that know us, that are just skeptical. So I had a client this morning. He came in for a second session. He had just come in last week, and when he met me last week, I think one of the first few words out of his mouth were, "I'm skeptical about this." And I'm just kind of laughing, because in a way, I just want to be funny about it to build, that sense of rapport where it's like, you don't have to believe it, but obviously you're here, so you must not be skeptical enough to keep you out of this.
Mhm.
He wanted to quit smoking. And then immediately after the first few minutes, he was sort of like, wow, he's like, I feel amazing. And this was just like in the pre-talk, I mean, hypnosis is a science of communication. So we are using some techniques, like you're saying, Troy, that just feel like a conversation. So he immediately felt comfortable because he had never done any sort of, therapy. Hypnosis is a therapy because we're using it like change work, even though you and I, we're not therapists. So we're not diving into the drama and trauma of your life. We're just talking about, what do you want and how would it feel like if you had that right now, because your conscious mind up until today has probably made you feel like it's some distant time off far into the future, or you're going to have to jump through hoops, or feel, deprived of something that brings you joy in order to get what you want. So he felt better at the session. I mean, he said it was the most relaxed he'd ever been. I mean, I could tell when he walked out of here, he was a different person.
Mhm.
And then he, gave me enforcement of that today at our session, when he was just like, he's been telling everybody, because he, like most people, right, he was the guinea pig of his group, because everybody's like, yeah, hypnosis, maybe I'll try it. I've seen it on TV. I don't know if it works. Maybe it works for you. It's probably definitely not going to work for me, because I'm not going to give up control of my mind. And we're supporting people's minds, right? I mean, they come into you, to work with you for anxiety, for example, if their mind has taken them somewhere that they just don't want to be anymore.
Well, that's
But I know,
exactly right. And it's a co-collaborative approach. I had a client, she came in, this is maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, with driving anxiety. And
mm-hmm,
she had, she couldn't drive down the road. I mean, she had her kids trained when she was driving her kids to school and picking them up from school. She had her kids trained that they couldn't speak to her, they couldn't move in the car, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't ask her a question. It's like they just sat there stoic in the car because any little movement, right? I mean, would just set her off. She had extreme driving anxiety. It wasn't even when she was driving. It's like when she's pulling up to like stoplights. So she stopped, but she's still in the car. And she
right,
was just having this, these panic attacks and this anxiety that would just come out of left field. And she didn't understand where all this was coming from. So she's had this for like 10, 11 years. I mean, it was well over a decade. And she realized, at one point, she realized, hey, this is really impacting the quality of my life. And in today's society, it's true that you're going to need to drive around. You're going to need to get in an automobile and you're going to need to drive to the store. You're going to need to get on highways. It's a
of
practical
course.
way of living today. And so she came to me and she told me this, all of this, which I just explained to you and our audience in a nutshell. And, within 3 sessions, she was
Yeah.
able to have this complete transformation. And now, I mean, it wasn't even at the end of the 3 sessions. I mean, she was seeing results after the first session. And then she came back after after the first for the second. We got together even before we started the third session. She was saying, hey, I'm having fun on the road. I'm playing with this concept because she never liked being in the middle lane or the left-hand lane. She always wanted to be on the rightmost lane because she had a shoulder. So if she had her panic attack or had some sort of anxiety, she could just pull over really quick on the shoulder. But now she's coming to me and she's saying after the second session, hey, I'm able to have fun in the middle lane and I'm testing myself in the left lane and all these different, and it's like you have this neural flexibility that's going on in her brain because her brain realizes that, you know what, driving isn't such a big deal. It's hindering my life, it's restricting my freedom of movement. And now this is someone who is excited about the traveling, someone who is really happy that she has her life back, someone who's really enjoying the quality of her life moving forward. So I always say it like this, Lauren, you know, someone who has any kind of anxiety or any kind of issue for 5, 10, 15 years, a lot of people, most people, they think erroneously that it's going to take them another 5, 10, or 15 years just to get back to some sort of normal baseline. But that's not how things work because that's not how the brain is designed to work.
It makes, I mean, I can sympathize with the logic. It took me this long to get here. It'll take me this long to get back to where I was. But when you really sit down with a person and give them, your full focus, like in a non judgmental, active listening way, and they start going into their story, it's, it's, um, it's amazing and almost disheartening how many people who have things like anxiety will say, wow, I used to be better. And then you talk about, well, tell me about that better time. And they start describing it. And it's like, you know what? You still felt like you had anxiety then, or you still felt like you were overweight then. Like this has been a story that's haunted you for as long as you feel like you've been alive, because it's a feeling. The brain has taken over that feeling and it's taken that negative state like a stamp and it's stuffed it into every memory of your life. And this is why, the brain already is doing this. And so people like us with, the skill set that we have, we can go in to support the neuropsychology to just give the subconscious a new set of stamps and stamp in the confidence, right, or the detachment or the reprieve, like stamp in either the removal of the problem or the association of the resource that is contrast to that problem. I mean, it's just the brain. It is malleable. It is actively aware and awake at all times, even when you're sleeping. And there's no negative side effects. That's the thing that to me is most interesting. When I support people like this guy for smoking, like, he quit smoking, but then he's noticing other things. So we had this plan already, he and I, that we would do 3 sessions. So he's coming in for a third and he's like, I want to keep working with you. And a lot of people continue to like come on. And I think you and I are both doing this now, Troy, right? Like a retainer, sort of like a booster, just, you and I continue to study. So we'll just continue to keep supporting people with all the tools that we have.
Well, I always tell people to use me as a resource,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if they feel like, they have conquered the issue, they've made the transformation, and if they don't want to go any further, that's on them. Because that's what true empowerment's all about. Allowing someone to walk back into their life and not depending upon me or anything else that's external. They need to rely on themselves. That's true personal power. But you're right. If somebody wants to come back and they want to work on something new, or if they want, a refresher or a confidence boost or something like that, I mean, we all can use that, right? I know for me, I can use that, more oftentimes than probably I like to admit. But getting back to what you were saying a second ago, with these cycles and these loops of whatever the issue is, right? Can't stop smoking, can't stop feeling anxious. People need to understand that they're feeding these stories into their own self-perpetuating loop,
Self hypnosis all
right?
the time.
They're doing this. There's something called a neural feedback loop, right? So that means that basically whatever you tell your brain, whatever thoughts you have, visualizations you have, whatever words you say, any images or movies you have in your head, this is the neural feedback loop that feeds this cycle. So if you're waking up expecting to feel anxious because yesterday you were feeling anxious, guess what? You're going to start to feel anxious again because that's what your brain is picking up on. It's the stories and the words and the images, that all these things your brain stores, right? It feeds all of your beliefs and all of your attitudes back to you. So I always say this. I always say it's not where you are, right? When I talk to a new client, it's not where you are today that matters. It's important who you decide to become next. That's what matters. In
Yeah.
other words, who you decide to become tomorrow is important, not who you've been for the past 5 years chain smoking, not who you've been the last 10 years feeling anxious. It's who you decide to become tomorrow. Because once someone understands this empowerment And once someone has, once someone has these tools and techniques at their disposal and they're armed, feeling anxiety, for example, becomes a choice. They
Wow.
can choose to feel anxious or they can choose to feel excited. Now, without the empowerment, without the tools, without the techniques and the strategies that hypnosis provides, it's not a choice. And I understand that and I get that. But when someone has the knowledge and someone has the education, and we teach people all the time, both of us, how to do their own self hypnosis,
Mhm.
it's their responsibility to make sure that they are putting themselves in the correct emotional state that's best for them. And that's why you're feeding back into that neural loop. You're feeding back into the positive emotions, stories, images, thoughts, beliefs, attitudes into that neural loop. And that's what's causing you to have a better tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. It is self empowerment and education, and then they detach from us as to having any dependency. What I like people to feel supported with is that the brain learns and then it does this on its own. One thing when you were talking, Troy, about picturing who you want to be tomorrow, it immediately made me think about like life coaches, because I feel like that industry, has really taken off. And here in the area where I live, but maybe it's just the networking circles that I have, there's dozens of life coaches, and some are generalists, some are specialists, um, and they all have a good talent or skill set. But when I'm thinking about how to support a person to hone in on the specifics of who they want to be tomorrow, we have to remember we're individuals. We have an individual life experience right here in this present moment of life. So, maybe a vision board is the best tool for you today. But will it stay the best tool for you the next couple of weeks while you manifest the resonance, to feeling deserving and having ease of attachment, to draw in those things? I don't know. That's to me one angle. Just like journaling is sort of one angle, affirmations are one angle. I don't want to put it up to chance. Like I want to go back into the, biological configuration of our state of consciousness and make the shift. And that happens to what we're talking about, Troy, which is where I think support comes in. And either you're supporting yourself as your own hypnotist, or you find a specialist to work with who's doing hypnotic conversation in a waking or a trance state.
So what's a good client story that you have to share, Lauren? I'm curious. Is there some client story that sticks out in your mind that they came in and they were, whatever it was, they were upset, they were distraught, they were desperate, they were depressed, whatever it might be, right? And
Yeah,
they were like,
all
"Look,
the
I'm coming to you, Lauren, because you're my last resort. I've been dealing with this for so many years, so long." Is there any story that you can tell
time.
tell me and tell our audience about, a remarkable transformation?
Have a ton of stories, but in my present day of life where I am right now, I just feel so light and like energized because talking with you and talking about this, that it's hard for me to even connect to those stories when clients come in and basically just collapse. They almost are like, just this is the they have this sense of, if this doesn't work, I just know nothing else ever will, because they've tried everything else already. But so when I'm thinking about something fun, it's making me, this little girl that I worked with last week, it was our second session. And at our first session, when she came in, she was really distressed. She was with her parents, and I didn't think to mention, I mean, I'm on the fourth floor in my office here where they were coming, that there's an elevator, and the girl was coming for for separation anxiety. And she had some nervousness about other things, but I didn't know elevators was one of those. And when she got here and found out there was an elevator, there was a big breakdown. So I went down to the lobby, to talk with everybody, and you just keep it moving. And this is the first time that I'm meeting the girl, so I knew that she probably had some reservations because she had been to a ton of therapists, and one of the therapists had recommended hypnosis, which is why we were working together. And so luckily, I could talk to the front desk, and we have some maintenance stairs because it's a really tall building. So most people just use the elevator, so they could come up the stairs. But so after we had that, then I had this sense of opportunity to really just, I'm so sorry. Like, what can I do for you? Here's my office and here's all these things that you can sort of play with. So she was really shy at first and not talking with me. So I'm just talking with the parents. But like you keep any conversation going, I just kept things moving. And then by, the middle of the session, she's talking to me like she's, playing. I had some little pendulums, which people always think about for hypnosis. And I don't really use those other than to show like the power of focus. So she's playing with one. So I'm getting her to focus and we're animating her problem state. So she called nervousness. I'm like, well, what's a name for this character? Because we're going to want to talk to this character so that we can ask it to get out of your life because it's bothering you. It's not letting you do the things you want to do with your sisters, and you're not able to stay at school without like having some meltdowns. So she called her nervousness nuisance, which we're all cracking up about because that's a really, that's a big name for a small girl. And here's the thing with so many kids is they're so intelligent, and that over activity in the conscious mind, if it doesn't have structure, which I mean, um, society's doing what it does, and I applaud it because it's a massive system and there's a lot of moving parts. But if you have an overactive mind, it might start looking for problems, not because it's out to get you, but because it wants to fix stuff. Because when it fixes stuff, it feels adrenaline. We know how good it feels to fix stuff. So you've got a place of your brain that's always looking for problems to fix. And that can be really frustrating for adults and kids.
Mhm.
So she just had this frustration that had come up in these other areas of life. So once we redirected, now she's just this confident person who, the second time she came in, I mean, the parents, you could just see like the color was back in their face because they've been getting good sleep. She's not getting in their bed. She's staying at school. I mean, she's, telling me all the stuff that she's done at school. Like I know her classmates and her teachers. So I guess that would be the one I'm going to bring in to show and tell is um, my success with this girl who just has had such a night and day shift. I mean, there's a lot of kids that I'll work with. Some open up at different paces, but she was just so instantly supported, which is one of the best seats in the house, right? To have that, Troy. And it makes me want to like just never sleep again, to stay on this podcast, to like keep going, because this girl and these parents, they had been to a couple of therapists before. And I'm not knocking therapy at all. It is amazing. I know a ton of powerful therapists who use hypnotic techniques. But hypnosis, because of its title, I don't know. I think more it's because it is mystical. The mind is mystical. So this tool we have to work in the mind can't help but be mystical. I can't explain. I can talk on theory of how it works, but it's not a standardized script. I didn't have a plan in place when that girl came in as to what I would do. I let her lead. She led what tool I was going to use next because it's her subconscious. It's not my plan.
Well, that's exactly right. And that's why you are the great Lauren Hall.
You're hilarious, Troy. I mean, I blush when you say that. You guys can't see me on our podcast here, but um,
It's
Troy,
true. It's
it's
true.
what's so fun about this is you let me talk about this thing that I'm so passionate about. I'm like, I would just not um, ever be done telling people about not only the effectiveness, like it really, really works, but how quick it is. I mean, your client that you were talking about, like she's having a panic attack at a stoplight, and now she's playing with her kids. It's I don't know. I don't want to get on a conversation of what other things were working for her to do that, because I just know that this thing does work, and it's not a placebo.
But see, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I mean when I say it's the client that's making this change, right? I tell my everyone who comes to work with me, I tell them the same thing. My responsibility, my job is to teach and instruct. But when you go back into your world, when you go back into your life, you are the one that's creating this change. I'm not there with you, right? I mean, I work with people in different states and different countries. I'm not there with you. You are the one that's creating this change. And 5, 10, 15 minutes of conditioning in a new positive change every single day, is something that is so beneficial, because that's one of the main key reasons as to why the brain changes, through repetition. So when you
Mhm.
feed it a new story, when you give it new words, when you give it a new voice, when you have these different and more positive attitudes and beliefs, that's when, getting back to the neural feedback loop, that's when this story starts to change. And that's how your brain starts to wire in these new neural pathways, change its neural framework, and create these new positive outcomes. That's why people get success, because that's how the brain is designed to work. And it's awesome. So yes, we get the best seat in the house. And I know that for me, I am so humbled by that, because it is such an amazing experience to see. And when you're working with your girl, like you said, your little girl, with elevators and things like that, I mean, it's like she comes in the building one way, and she's leaving a whole different way. I mean, it's so priceless that someone can understand that how fast change happens. But it's also, in my opinion, it's also priceless to have the individual know that they are the ones that are creating this change for themselves. They are the one that's fighting for this change. They are the one that's moving forward, because they understand that something better exists for them. And that, in my opinion, that shows what great character someone has. Because if they've been dealing with, let's say, anxiety for 2+ decades, but they're still coming to me, or they're still coming and looking for a better solution, they realize that there's a better quality of life for them. And their character demonstrates that because they're still looking and searching, they will find what they're looking to find, and they will have that solution that they're looking to receive. And I'm fortunate to have these people come to me. Lauren, I'm sure you feel the same way when someone comes to you, because now we get to experience, and we get to teach, and we get to allow someone to have this positive experience through the change work that we do to
Mhm.
affect lives.
Yeah, I'm very elated by that. I guess I'm just elated today. I've used that word twice now.
It's an elated kind of day, I guess, for you.
You know what it is? It's because I've seen a few clients like back to back, and when I've seen clients, like I'm always getting into that success state with them.
Hmm.
And so that is why this is the best, not only the best seat, but the best career. I mean, I did not expect to be a hypnotist. Like I told you, and you guys can listen to the podcast where Troy interviewed me. I just read about it, and I thought, wow, that seems kind of weird and interesting. which I don't know why that inspired me to read more, but I did, and now I've been doing it, and it's phenomenal. I love talking about my client successes. We should do this again. Let's do more client stories on another podcast.
Sure, let's do it. In the meantime, make sure you check us out. Our website, hypnosisinaction.com. Make sure you head over there, check us out. Make sure you get your free
Audio.
hypnosis audios. There's two of them over there for you. One is Lauren's, one is mine. It's actually Lauren's voice. It's actually my voice on those audios. And you can also connect with us over on Facebook at Co-Creation Nation, just by typing that in the search bar over on Facebook, and let us know what you would like us to discuss, right? I think it's a good idea that we can, talk about client success stories. I mean, we even have some of our past clients come on and talk to us right here on the podcast. But as a listener, right, go over to Facebook and let us know what you would like us to discuss in upcoming shows. Maybe there's a certain practitioner or a certain topic that you would like us to discuss. So let
Yeah.
us know. We're all ears.
Or come in and be interviewed yourself if you've worked with another hypnotist. This is not a show that is only biased to the success. Like, we will bring on skeptics, we'll bring on anyone who wants to talk about the true potential, because no one could argue that about the potentials of the mind. We're talking about the potentials, and we're talking about these techniques and skill sets that we use, and any other practitioner who's in the human services industry. So it's a lot of fun, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back soon.
Thanks for being great, Lauren Hall.
Troy, you are terrific. I was going to call you legendary because I love too with our talk how you are like, and I'm drawing it all the way back around to the neuro loop, and I'm just like, oh, this is poetry. All right, bye, Troy. See you soon.
Bye, everybody.